The alarm bells are deafening, and the evidence is irrefutable. Greenhouse gas emissions from fossil fuel burning and deforestation are choking our planet and putting billions of people at immediate risk. We are on a fast track to climate disaster. This is not fiction or exaggeration. It is what science tells us will result from our current energy policies. This is a climate emergency. Well, good evening, everybody. It is my great pleasure to welcome you to this inaugural Waterkeeper broadcast from COP27, coming to you from Sharm El Sheikh on the Sinai Peninsula in Egypt. I'm KC Schulberg, the Collier County Waterkeeper, and I will be serving as your host for the next 13 days as we broadcast news from the conference each day until November 18th. Before we get started, let me play this address from UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres that was released today at noon, Egypt time.
As COP27 gets underway, our planet is sending a distress signal. The latest state of the Global Climate Report is a chronicle of climate chaos. As the World Meteorological Organization saw so clearly, change is happening with catastrophic speed, devastating lives and livelihoods on every continent. The last 8 years have been the warmest on record, making every heat wave more intense and life-threatening, especially for vulnerable populations. Sea levels are rising at twice the speed of the 90s, posing an existential threat for low-lying island states and threatening billions of people in coastal regions. Glacier melt records are themselves melting away, jeopardizing water security for whole continents. People and communities everywhere must be protected from the immediate and ever-growing risks of the climate emergency. That is why we are pushing so hard for universal early warning systems within 5 years. We must answer the planet's distress signal with action, ambitious, credible climate action. COP27 must be the place, and now must be the time.
Why are we doing this? Why are we trying to elevate messaging on the climate crisis? Well, quite frankly, it's because the Earth has been screaming at us with increasing intensity, and we have not been listening. We've not given this adequate attention, and we've not taken sufficient steps to claw our way back from the brink of climate catastrophe. That is why we are here. If you are listening, that is why you are here. We have a robust set of programs planned for the week with lots of content on the goings-on. As today was mostly taken up with opening ceremonies, we thought we'd take this opportunity to set the table, show you a little bit of Sharm El Sheikh, the destination for this year's conference, and give you a kind of overview on what to expect over the next 2 weeks. Here is a photo montage of the city recorded today by team member Michal Fidler.
So when I learned that this year's COP is going to be organized in Sharm El Sheikh in Egypt, my first thought was, well, I know that the city is a tourist resort in south of Sinai, and it will be really nice weather there, it will be warm, and the landscape will be pretty nice. So it proved to be true, because here the city is full of these villas and swimming pools, and as a tourist resort, that's not a bad place at all. You have a nice sea with coral reefs, hotels on every other corner. The landscape seems to me pretty nice. The sea is simply beautiful with this dark blue color and the coral reefs. We were moving from one hotel to another, since the city has probably around 70,000 people. So finding a hotel, although there are so many here, was not so easy because the prices went up as soon as Egyptians learned that there will be COP and maybe 30,000 people will be coming to town. But again, as we are moving between these various hotels, I had a chance to walk in the hotel complexes, and for a tourist destination or for a vacation destination, this is not bad at all. We could spend here a few weeks taking just photos of the sunset and so on. But it's not really all candy here, or if you just leave the tourist area or the beaches and the fancy hotels, this is what you get. So the whole town smells like paint because getting ready for the conference, but this is where the canisters with the paint end up. So really the city has many faces, but I would say the two main faces is the pretty and beautiful one for the tourists, and then there is the local face, not that cute at all. So the city is really just wedged between the desert or the mountains and the desert and on the sea on the other side. The desert is not a sandy, smooth sand. These are tough rocks and sharp rocks. It's no fun to walk in there. Here would be just yet another view of the city with the main avenue, which basically leads to COP. Seems to be a little overestimated in the sense of the traffic is pretty low, but it's what it is. So yet another aerial view of the city, just with the beaches on the right hand side and the mountains and desert on the left hand side. And also went to the sea to get just a glimpse. So it really depends how you want to see the city. You can take the photos the way that it would attract divers and tourists to get here, or you just take it the way it really is as soon as you leave all the resorts. Security-wise, I would say that there is a very strong police presence in town. It might not be just because of COP, but also because it's the famous tourist resort. So there is police officers. There are police officers everywhere, and there are also, I would say, maybe undercover police officers, or maybe just some security guys standing or sitting in front of every other hotel, and not really doing much. I have seen these police officers washing. The car was completely washed, so they had nothing to do. They were just so bored, or maybe just somebody ordered them to do it. So they were washing the tires of the car or the wheels of the car. Religious-wise, obviously, Egypt is Islamic country, so there are mosques everywhere, and here and there are also few churches, but it's only just few small churches. I visited one of them here in Sharm El Sheikh. It was very peaceful there. It was very colorful, but it was really empty. There was almost nobody there. The security situation was pretty tough in front of the church. There were some serious security guards. That was airport type security check before I was able to enter the church. So I also wanted to see a mosque, just to get a glimpse. Been there many times, but again, hey, this is Egypt, so it's mandatory to see a mosque. So when there during the prayer time, it was pretty full, and that was my feeling. It was just very full of people, but it is what it is. But we are not here for the beaches and for the prayers. We are here for COP, and the city is getting ready for COP. You can feel it in the air. The new fancy buses are all lined up. The world leaders and thousands of people are coming in town, either on the commercial flights or their private jets. and the ordinary people are just making sure that the city looks nice and it's all clean, so we get the feeling that it's all great here. So the city really on the main boulevard looks like that. It's nice and fancy and clean, but just go a little bit down, further down the road, and it's not all candy. But it is what it is, like I said. So this would be the last photo for today, with the main boulevard heading towards the COP, which the venue, which is located in the top right corner of this image. I got my badge. So starting tomorrow, we'll be presenting from COP live.
This year, as last year, I'm thrilled to be joined by my friend and co-host for these programs, Dr. Jordan Capece. He's the Kissimmee Waterkeeper. Aside from John, we have a team of 6 working with us to bring you these shows, including Michal Fidler, whose colorful photographic overview of Sharm El Sheikh you just watched. This year, we also have 19-year-old climate activist Valhali Frank, who is a member of the great Seminole tribe of Florida. Valhali, I want to tell you that your parents, Rhonda and Frank, are very proud of you. Keep up your good work. Rounding out the team, we have Argentinian-born University of Miami PhD student Esteban Rodofiel, Turkish engineer Tolga Sengel, and Rock Abujwade, who's helping steer a whole other set of student streams from the conference from his base in Gainesville. In addition, we will welcome this week Sheikh Fadel Wad, the Barney Coast Waterkeeper, and Mbake Sek, the Han Baykeeper. They are both from Senegal. As some of you may know, we've been working with Chris Wilkie, Global Advocacy Director for the Waterkeeper Alliance, on a campaign to stop offshore oil and gas drilling from coming to Senegal. This is going to be a heavy lift. More on that during the coming week with Mbake and Fadel. In the interest of transparency, I need to let you know that I had a minor health wrinkle last Saturday, which prevented me from traveling to Egypt with our team as planned. So we have devised a way to work across the world and across 7 time zones, coordinating with our team on the ground and me here in Southwest Florida to bring you these shows. A bit of background on the COP. This year, over 40,000 are expected to swamp this small seaside resort sandwiched between mainland Egypt and Saudi Arabia. As you know by the title, this is the 27th COP, and COP stands for Conference of the Parties. They're organized by the United Nations and date back to 1995. The one we all probably know about is COP15, where the Paris Climate Accord was signed. The Paris Agreement more or less serves as the Magna Carta of international environmental policy. 194 nations or parties signed on to that treaty, intended to rein in climate change with a pledge not to exceed 1.5 degrees Celsius above pre-industrial age. We're not doing well in aspiring to that goal. We're currently at 1.1 and 1.2, and look at the ravages climate change is already causing. Both John and I happen to live in Southwest Florida. We just had one of the most horrendous and powerful destructive hurricanes in U.S. history. At the same time, much of the world is experiencing droughts, wildfires, sea level rise, and a multitude of other climate change consequences. Again, this is why immediate attention is required to combat this existential threat. So now let's go to my friend and partner, Jordan Capece, who's just returned from the conference where he started to scope out the national pavilions. Hey, John, how are you doing?
Oh, we're surviving here. We're getting settled in. It was a long trip, a lot of ordeals with logistics to get our team settled. We miss you. You know, we were looking forward to you being here with us for 2nd year and being alongside as we go through this thing. But we'll make this work.
Yeah, we'll make it work. Hey, John, tell me a little bit about the vicissitudes of getting into your apartment and the bizarre plugging apparatus and all of
that. Yeah. Well, I'm going to kind of take a pass on some of the more formidable logistical challenges we face, because that's a conversation for another day when I'm a little calmer and won't be so emotional about it. Yeah. But it's been an ordeal, and it's taken away considerable time from our content development and our focus. But fortunately, we got here early enough to where we could work through all those things and still cover all of the events and get ourselves registered. So compared to previous years, personally, I'm ahead of the game because normally I don't get here until Monday or Tuesday and get my Blue Zone badge and get into the COP thing. So as difficult as it's been, we've managed. And then the housing, now that we're managing okay. There's some unique challenges. And one common challenge to every place we've been here in Egypt so far, in Sharm El Sheikh, has been the electrical. We're always dealing with voltage differences and slightly different plugs, but this year, quite unique. They use, your standard European type plug with the little dots, the little circles. But instead of plugging it in this way into the wall, like we do with our Western plugs, we do the same thing. We plug it in. Here in Egypt, they plug it in this way. And what happens is you've got a load on it because you've got an extension cord or a wire, and it creates a torque, and it pulls this contact from the wall slightly, and you lose your connection. So every time we've had to push up a chair against the wall or a cabinet to keep the plug in. I've even resorted to super glue. I fortunately had a tube of super glue, so everywhere I go, there's going to be a trail of plugs super glued into the wall.
You're going to rip the outlet out of the wall when you leave.
That's the other thing.
There's an app you should develop for Sharm El Sheikh, a plug adapter for all Europeans.
Right.
Anyway, yesterday you got to tour the pavilions. You were inside the conference. You got to tour the pavilions. So let's talk about that. What is the layout? And then tell us the difference between the conference side, where the pencil pushers and official delegates are having their meetings, and then the pavilion side. Just explain how that works.
Yeah. Well, first, one of the logistical aspects was getting there on the buses, and I must say that compared to Glasgow and Paris and all the others I've been to, the transportation here is actually better because the configuration of Sharm El Sheikh is right along the coast. So there's one main highway going up and down, and they're just running buses up and down there like crazy. You can hardly step off the curb without getting hit by one of these COP buses coming by. So getting to the venue is quick and convenient and comfortable. So I'm very pleased about that. And then getting into the venue was quick because we were early, so we got our badges and moved in. Getting our bearings a little tricky because these are all brand new structures. When we looked on Google Earth in preparing for this, it was just desert. It was just raw land in the imagery. And they built all of these structures. And what they are is metal frames with basically a polyethylene or some sort of fabric pulls over these structures. So they're basically big, massive tents. And they've got all these air conditioning units lined up along the side. So they have gone all out in doing this. And we've heard from people in the community saying that the tourism areas that we were visiting to get our meals near the hotels and such, 6 months ago didn't exist. I mean, it's all brand new. So the Egyptians have dropped
Michael told me he was wearing 3 sweaters this morning and still cold in the press conference. So they're overusing energy. This is kind of empty. This is kind of counterintuitive for an energy conference. They're freezing everybody in the climate that's 95 degrees.
Well, the climate here is wonderful this time of year. I mean, I've got the window open right now. It's been extremely comfortable. We've just been blessed. And when you come from Florida, you just love this dry, temperate, sort of reasonable weather. But going back to the structures, the air conditioning, what I think happened is, you have to do your heat calculation, your heat loads based upon your assumptions. And they've got this fabric, so it's going to transfer heat readily between the atmosphere and the interior of the structure. So you're going to have some formidable air conditioning units to overcome any significant heat load. So they probably came prepared for that, but maybe they're having some thermostat issues or some differential stratification of temperatures anyway, but it's not so bad. It's a little cool in there, but we're managing fine. Another thing is because they're tent structures, they're unlike the other expo halls we've been to for COP. So whereas the pavilions are traditionally 2-story units, where they have kind of their private meeting areas upstairs and the more public downstairs. Everything is one level. So it's much more spread out. So you better bring a comfortable pair of shoes because you're going to do some hoofing around this conference to get to the various venues. And there's several different activities going on. You know, you've always got the two zones. You've got the blue zone and the green zone. The green zone is a public area with all sorts of exhibits, and that's nice. You know, a lot of the school children go through there and the general public. There's not so much of that here. Sharm El Sheikh is a town of only 73,000, and I'm sure the number of tourists here is maybe 4 or 5 times that at any given moment. So the traffic for the green zone, it'll be interesting to see if there's significant traffic there. The blue zone is where they hold all of the various meetings, and you sort of got 3 categories of those. You've got your official negotiation sessions and the COP level activities. Then you've got your side events, and your side events are somewhere in between the official COP and the unofficial, the observer groups. Then you've got the pavilions, and the pavilions are expansive, huge number of them. Last year there were counted about 97 of them. This year there's at least 116 of these. And I think there's probably more like 130. I'm working on the list, and that's going to be something we can share with everyone out there. We'll have this list. They've done a much better job this year. Last year, when the conference started, they only had 13 of the 97 pavilions on a website, and only a couple of those had links where you could go to see their schedule or some sort of information. This year, there are 82 of the 116 so far, or 140, however many there's going to be, are on the web page, and including email addresses and links to the schedules by and large. So much better organized. The UNFCCC is climbing the learning curve on doing this virtual conference thing. So it's much better this year from that perspective.
So tell us, John, the people who are notably absent this year, and I think you have a little list that you want to show, or a map.
I'll what I'd like to do is share first the list of the 116 pavilions that I've noted so far, and I kind of broke them down. I pulled them all into a spreadsheet and started sorting them and tagging them. So they fall into about 8 different categories as far as the way I broke it down. And 45 of these 116 are nations, different countries, specific countries, the US, Canada, Spain, Germany, etc. 45 different nations.
Considering there are 198 nations, we got a lot missing. If they're, but I guess some of them are covered by the regional.
Right.
Yeah. Okay.
Well, I also think that there's more nations that I haven't picked up yet because they're not on the web page, and I haven't been able to download the PDF files. They're kind of keeping those secret as far as the maps. But yes, the regions pick up a lot more. 10 of the regional coverages, and I'll explain more about that later. Then 7 of the pavilions are actual UN agencies, different offices of the United Nations. Then 5 are constituencies, groups of people, or pavilions that focus on different groups of people. Then 30 of them, the second largest group next to the nations, are technical, specific topics within this whole climate crisis set of issues. And a lot of those are nonprofit organizations. So I've labeled them as technical, but they also fall into the NGO category. And other nonprofits, I found about 4 of those that weren't really topic specific, more of a general coverage, foundations and such things. Then very interesting, there are 4 pavilions that focus on the legal aspects. And I'm going to be very interested to visit those and see what subtopics they deal with and nature of their programs. And then lastly, there's a group of 11 that I label as finance/business. Most of these are funding organizations, groups like the World Bank, but a couple of them are actual corporations, multinational corporations that feel that they benefit from having an actual pavilion. So I'll first like to go through some of the nations by sharing the map here.
Yeah.
Now, when you look at this map, certain things jump right out at you as far as who's here and who's not. The yellow are the nations that have their own pavilion. So the U.S., Canada, Brazil, Australia, India. India's back. India didn't have a pavilion last year. They're back this year with a very nice pavilion. It's good to see that.
Though Narendra Modi is noticeably not present this year.
Right.
Neither is Xi, as the premier of China, not present this year.
Yeah, we lost China last year.
Yeah.
2 years ago, or 2 conferences ago, Madrid, China had one of the largest, most impressive exhibits. And they focused a lot on nuclear power, trying to demonstrate that they were committing to trying to get away from their extensive use of coal plants, and they were planning on focusing on nuclear. Last year, Russia had a pavilion, and almost its entire content was based upon nuclear energy. And all of the factors there. They're not here this year. Russia's not here.
That was pre-invasion last year.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And in addition, last year the Central Asian nations had a pavilion, and these are the nations on the southern frontier here of Russia. You got Kazakhstan, Uzbekistan, Turkmenistan, and Kyrgyzstan. They're not part of the Central Asian pavilion that was here last year. However, little old Tajikistan here, with its 7 million people, they have a pavilion. And it's interesting, and it makes you wonder, did Kazakhstan and these other Central Asian nations simply decide that they couldn't afford it this year? Or might there be some political dimension to their decision? I saw a conference, a broadcast of a conference from a couple of months ago in which Putin had convened with the Central Asian nations. And they are normally quite deferential to Putin. Not this year. Tajikistan, the Tajik president, basically dressed down Putin, asserting that, big brother Russia was treating little Tajikistan with a lack of respect.
Oh my God.
He put it in exactly those terms.
Oh my
and it's hard
God.
to know
I hope he's got
exactly
a security detail.
Yeah. Yeah. So maybe the fact that they have an exhibit, a pavilion here, and the other Central nations do not, maybe that's correlated with the dynamics that we saw at this Central Asian conference earlier.
Yeah.
But regardless of the reason, there's a whole swath of Eurasia that's just not represented here. Going from China, much of Southeast Asia, to Vietnam and Burma. You got Thailand and Indonesia represented. I've got Indonesia improperly labeled. That should be a yellow. I'll fix that tomorrow, and I'll update this map to pick up the ones that I haven't found out about yet. Yeah, but you've got
also surprising that Mexico does not have a pavilion. They're not there.
I'm hoping that's a mistake on my part.
Okay.
I'm hoping that I just haven't found them yet. That's what I'm going to definitely be looking for.
Okay. So what we're trying to do, folks, is just sort of set the table. The conference really began today with kind of opening ceremonies, a press conference. So before we get into the nitty gritty of the week, we just want to kind of let people know how the conference is being laid out. That's what John is trying to do. So in broad strokes. So we're just kind of sort of laying the groundwork for how the conference works, and then we'll get into some more detailed stuff during the week. This is the.
Maybe we can go through a couple of these regional, like the national, they're pretty self-evident, but the regional pavilions, we've got 10 of them, and you can see they fall into these categories: Caribbean, the Sahel drought nations, vulnerable nations, particularly vulnerable to climate change, cities. Cities have their own pavilion, and it's a broad range of cities cooperating on that pavilion. Then Africa, Europe or the European Union, the Mediterraneans, Scandinavians, West Africa, and Pacific nations, Pacific Island nations. And then at the UN level, you've got a science pavilion called Climate Action Pavilion, IFAD, which deals with food, sustainable development goals, SDGs, then a technology group, and then an innovation pavilion, the World
Mhm.
Health Organization,
Mhm.
and another SDG. So, and then on the constituency, you've got Indigenous Peoples Pavilion,
Yeah.
some sort of a digital arts, a youth group, and
Mhm.
then Children's Labor, another youth organization.
Mhm.
And then on the technical side, it's a wide range. You got forest, energy, counseling, sustainability, energy, solar, resiliency,
Yeah.
agriculture.
Yeah.
You know, there's just a wide range of those technicals.
You know,
And then on
last year, the largest delegation was the fossil fuel lobbying delegation. Something like 285 people were there lobbying for fossil fuel. And the next largest delegation might have been 65 people. So it far outpaced the size of any other delegation. I don't know if that's true again this year. You could snoop around and see.
well, as far as square footage
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
investment in their pavilions, I mean, Saudi Arabia is just kind of a stone's throw across the strait in that direction.
Of course. Of
And
course.
they've got a massive pavilion here
Yeah.
today.
Yeah.
It doesn't have a lot of content. It looks like a lot of meeting rooms and for presentations. Not much in the way of static exhibits.
Yeah.
But Qatar has a big exhibit. Kuwait has a big exhibit. United Arab Emirates.
Yeah.
I think OPEC
There you
has a
go.
pavilion.
There you go. Yeah. There you go.
We're not in Kansas anymore.
That's what I was talking about. And next year the conference is in the United Arab Emirates, so
Yeah,
that's why they're prominently setting up their conference next year.
I imagine so.
We kind of have
imagine so.
two conferences back to back in the Middle East or in the Gulf region. That's interesting. So, John, we will catch up with you in the next day. Thank you for your input, and good luck with the outlet situation. We wish you no mishaps of that variety. So
Right.
thanks a lot for this opening recap, and we'll catch up with you tomorrow.
Well, KC, again, we miss you here. We wish you were here with us.
Okay.
Bye.
As the week progresses, we will try to take you into the meetings in those pavilions and give you a glimpse of the delegates struggling to achieve international consensus to frame brand new important policy. And now it's time for our nightly interview, this time with Gidon Bromberg, the Jordan River Waterkeeper from Israel, and also the director of EcoPeace based in Tel Aviv. EcoPeace has been doing yeoman work on seeking water and climate solutions in novel and historic ways. Here's my friend Gidon. Hello, Gidon Bromberg. It is such a pleasure to have you again with us this evening. You were the last interview of our COP26 interviews of our nightly show. So now we're delighted you are the first interview for COP27. So welcome and thank you for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me. What an honor to both close the 26 COP and really help open the 27 COP that we have so many expectations towards.
That's great. That's great. So how many in your delegation, and what do you hope to accomplish during this COP? And I guess you have activities planned during the week as well.
We do. So we have the three Jordan River Waterkeepers together at the Sharm COP. Myself as the Israeli, our Palestinian waterkeeper, and our Jordanian waterkeeper, and then additional 4 additional staff and a development director. So we're a relatively large for a small NGO, a delegation there. We are speaking in 4 public activities that we'd love people listening in this evening to come and join. In fact, on the 8th from 3:30 to 5 in the Israel Pavilion, we're speaking about the need to promote regional cooperation on energy issues, on renewables, with a specific focus of how the Middle East can help provide the needed renewable power for Europe with its current problems, today and of course in the long term. Later that evening from 5 to 6 p.m. on the 8th, our Palestinian Jordan River Waterkeeper is leading or is involved in a session where we're going to talk about the need to further clean up the River Jordan and advance rehabilitation efforts. Then on the that event's taking place in the Water Pavilion. EcoPeace is also EcoPeace Jordan River Waterkeepers. We're really honored that we're co-sponsors of this year's Water Pavilion. Clearly, I think we all share in common our concern and for water issues, and to highlight the connection between the climate crisis and the water issues that we're grappling around the world. We have a second event in the Water Pavilion on the 12th of November from 3 to 4, and I'll be presenting there on our Green Blue Deal and solution water solution issues between Israelis and Palestinians. And then finally, we have our last event on the 16th of November between 7 and 9 in the European Pavilion. And there we're speaking together with SIPRI, which is the Stockholm International Peace Research Institute, on our proposals for a Green Blue Deal. And all those times are local times in Sharm, local times in Cairo. So we have 4 major presentations. We've scheduled a whole lot of one-on-one meetings with climate ambassadors, with ministers. Our agenda, because we're here in the Middle East. We feel that this is this COP and next year's COP are our opportunity to make sure that water issues, Jordan River Waterkeeper issues get at the top, to the highest level of decision makers on the agenda. Water is the issue of the climate crisis for the Middle East. I mean, it's for many parts of the world, but especially for the Middle East. So we need to make sure, and that's why we're coming as a large delegation, all 3 Jordan River Waterkeepers, to make sure that our voices are loud and hopefully being heard.
That's fantastic, Gidon. And I know I was going to say that this is sort of your neck of the woods. It looks to be, I just looked it up quickly, about a 6.5-hour drive from Tel Aviv to Sharm El Sheikh. So it's your neck of the woods. Do you think that will enhance your ability to put pressure on the decision makers, that you're sort of in the region, local, and that you'll have? Well, do you think it'll increase your chances of having an impact at the conference?
Absolutely, and that's particularly because our media is there. So Israeli, Palestinian, Jordanian, Arab media is going to heavily focus on this COP and next year's COP. So having a powerful delegation means that we can try and maximize our exposure and that media attention that hopefully we're going to pick up in Sharm will be transferred back to our own respective countries, and therefore we'll be able to utilize that for advocacy, for influencing our decision makers, because there is a real concern that the climate crisis is not getting the attention that it needs because of so many other sort of global issues that are distracting the attention of decision makers, including our own, on the importance of sort of keeping the eye on the ball. And the ball is the threat of the climate crisis to our very survival.
I've always viewed you as a master tactician, Gidon. You're sort of playing 3-dimensional chess with geopolitical pressures and age-old hostilities and the headwinds of climate change. How do you think health and safety and climate change in your region can kind of alter the paradigm and show us a path toward cooperation among untrusting parties?
So indeed, our strategy is built around that. Sadly, in our part of the world, our countries don't agree on anything. But there is one thing that our water authorities, our heads of state, have all come out with some important public statements, and that's that climate change is real climate change is already happening, and it threatens national security concerns of each one of our countries and the region as a whole. So and that's what EcoPeace did back in 2020 in the release of a call, in the release of a report calling for a green-blue deal for the Middle East, is to highlight our existing programs, rehabilitating the Jordan, solving Israeli-Palestinian water issues, and so forth, but taking it through the climate lens, because the climate lens already comes with urgency, and that enables us to get public attention and get attention of our leaders. What we have, however, seen, since Russia invaded Ukraine, and the whole global economic concerns of inflation and recession, perhaps, that the climate issue is not getting the attention that it needs. So the fact that the COP is is taking place in our region, we hope that this will spur the ability to get the needed attention in order to keep our decision makers committed to implementing the promises that they've made.
Yeah, it seems to me as though the achievements that you have accomplished in creating partnership, and I guess you call it interdependency among the parties on climate issues, can ultimately flood over into cooperation in other areas. In other words, can it set an example for how cooperation among these sort of traditionally hostile parties could work together in areas beyond climate change? So maybe climate change is one area where there's at least a bit of consensus, but you think there's a possibility it might flood over into other areas of cooperation?
Absolutely, because the main reason why there is so little cooperation in our part of the world is lack of trust. And our experience is that if you build trust on one issue, it doesn't stop with that issue. Those relations, that advancement of trust on one issue enables you to cooperate on much broader issues as well. So that's our rationale, and the linkage between environment, in this case the climate crisis, and broader peace building. Because as Jordan River Waterkeepers, as EcoPeace, we're at the cutting edge of what today is really quite well recognized as environmental peace building. When we started our work, this concept didn't exist. Today, it's a well-known academic concept. There's an international association of environmental peace builders. So this rationale that we're utilizing is today a broadly accepted rationale that's proven itself. That we've seen progress made not only in our part of the world but in other parts of the world, where the river that crosses the border is often the only opportunity to bring diverse sides together, build that trust, and then around the trust over shared water to expand that to other issues too.
Yeah, no, that's amazing. And I trust you as the person who, if no one else is able to do it, I think you can bridge some of these divides. You're so diplomatic, you're persistent, and you're relentless, but you're also diplomatic and you're very practical. And so if you need to bring in the private sector to these conversations, you're perfectly willing to do that. In fact, it's an integral part of the complex of the equation. Can you talk just a little bit about that part of the problem?
Oh, absolutely. We know that we want to see change take place, and we know that the private sector is a critical part of that change making. Our economies evolve around the private sector, so they can't be ignored. We need to bring them in. We particularly, of course, want to focus on those aspects of the private sector that are investing in renewables. You know, we're blessed with incredible amount of sun, so we want to work with you know, the industries that are producing, you know, solar power, wind power, green hydrogen, and in fact, our session on the 8th of November from 3:30 to 5 in the Israel Pavilion is including private sector, is including entrepreneurs that are really at the cutting edge of several of these technologies to highlight you know, the cooperation that's needed, you know, not only between, you know, Israelis, Palestinians, and Jordanians, not only between civil society and government, but the importance of integrating the private sector into that cooperation to create those healthy interdependencies that you started with.
Mm-hmm. I mean, I was amazed to hear last year about your plans to try to create cooperation between Jordan and Israel and Palestine, and drawing solar fields from Jordan where they have plenty of sun and no water and then sending the electricity, and then desalinization from Israel and providing water back to Jordan, and you know, creating some help for the Palestinians in creating and helping to broker the sewage treatment plants so that the beaches could then be reprieved. I mean, it's extraordinarily complex, and I'm kind of following this by remote control. Any updates on that? And I want to hear about the Blue-Green Deal. I think you signed that between Jordan and Israel, right?
So the letter of intent on the production of renewables in Jordan to power desalination on the Israeli coast, you know, to sell desalinated water back to Jordan. That letter of intent was signed, but the details are still to be worked out. We know that those details are moving forward. We'll see what will happen in these coming days, because we have our finger on the pulse on that issue. On the Gaza issue, our work here, you know, has really resulted in perhaps the first good news that sort of has come out as far as cooperation between Israel and the Gaza Strip in a decade. I mean, you know, there was over 100 million liters of sewage that wasn't able to be treated in Gaza, flowing into the Mediterranean, polluting Gaza's beaches, polluting Israel's beaches, intermittently closing down desalination plants in Israel. Now, you know, it's not all solved, but this summer was the first time in almost a decade that, you know, over 2 million Palestinians and several million Israelis were able to go back to the Mediterranean in that area with a greater sense that they're not going to catch disease by simply going and swimming in the sea. That water security for both Palestinians and Israelis has improved because of the investments made by the international community. But we helped those investments move forward because, again, we highlighted to decision makers the interconnectedness that we are dependent, that the currents don't stop in one place; they continue, and we have a common interest to solve sanitation crisis, be it in Gaza, be it in the West Bank, be it in Jordan, be it in Israel. There's a common interest here, and we've been very successful, I think, by highlighting practical solutions that speak, you know, to perhaps self-interest but mutual gain, and that's I think where we're the most you know, sort of strategic in our planning. We speak the language that Palestinians need to hear, that Israelis need to hear, that Jordanians need to hear, but we've designed the outcomes to make sure that it's a win-win-win.
Mm-hmm. I mean, to be able to reconnect the Palestinians to that natural treasure, which is the Mediterranean, when they were not allowed to, you know, when they weren't able to go to the beach because of the pollution and the sewage, and even in swelling up to the Israelis, I mean, it's such a wonderful achievement to allow them to reconnect with that natural resource. And the Israelis see that some of that was washing up their way, and now their beaches are improved too. So there's a perfect example of a huge win for everyone in the region. I have another question for you. The Jordan River. How's the Jordan River doing? What is the status? I know it's terribly depleted, and you had a plan to actually renourish the Jordan River, and you had that virtual tour of the Jordan River, so people can see how it might be one day, the state it might be restored to one day. So how's the Jordan River doing these days?
You know, under the what's now the former government, we had a major success. Towards just 3 months ago, the government of Israel passed a decision, a cabinet decision, to rehabilitate as a precedent the Israeli stretch of that river. There's an initial stretch where both banks of the river are on both sides in Israel. So there's a cabinet decision, financing allocated, and fresh water committed and allocated to that first stretch. But the challenge, so there's two challenges. One is that we can't stop there, that you don't rehabilitate the first 11 kilometers of a 100-kilometer river. We want to rehabilitate the whole 100-kilometer stretch. And there is a specific call for regional cooperation in that government decision. The challenge is that we just had elections in Israel, and there will be a new government. And although we don't know the details of exactly how that government is going to be formed, we do see challenges. We see, some people, some of the coalition partners, that we will have to rethink how we're going to indeed move forward our dire issues, our priorities, given the change that we expect. I mean, we have to wait and see. Particularly, who is appointed as the environment minister, as the water and energy minister, but the environment itself, the cooperation, might be negatively impacted. We hope not, and we're going to do everything we can, to make sure, despite the constantly changing geopolitical circumstances, that our issues remain as high up on the agenda as possible.
Yeah, well, good luck with that. We're not immune to political vicissitudes here either. I mean, we're all on tenterhooks for the election on Tuesday. So we know about having to deal with changing political climates. I've had a bunch of conversations with a fellow waterkeeper named Earl Hatley. I don't know if you know Earl. He's a member of the Abenaki tribe and the Cherokee tribe, and he is the Grand Riverkeeper in Oklahoma. And as a tribal member, he's been very aware that in our rush to renewable energies, we're facing a deficit of minerals. And there's a tendency, instead of recycling the minerals we already have, to go and create mining and plunder lands to excavate these minerals, many of which are on native lands. So this is kind of a dirty little secret in the rush to renewable energy, that we're not being as thoughtful as we as we should be, and we have to consider, are we recycling these minerals as best we can, or are we just throwing them into landfills and excavating and applying new minerals? So I had a sort of similar question for you. The desalinization program is so robust now, and the prices come way down. It's actually cheaper than a lot of electrical or other energy sources, fueled energy sources, which is fantastic. But is there a downside? What is the energy it requires to create desalinization, and what do you do with all that saline sludge? How are you confronting those issues?
So our position is that desalination should be the last choice, not the first choice. We need to get everything else right before advancing on, and that's our advice to the rest of the world. That governance needs to be in place, maximizing conservation. The price of water needs to reflect scarcity, with, of course, taking care of the poor. But people shouldn't, certainly not in our part of the world, the notion that, everyone should have a swimming pool or something, that's madness. So the price needs to reflect and help people conserve water. But perhaps the difference in our part of the world is that we, a long time ago, have run out of water. And despite some of the best practices, and Israel is an example of some of the best governance and technologies, and water is very expensive, the region has run out of water. And unless we're going to reduce our populations, there is no alternative to desalination, given the declining natural precipitation because of the climate crisis. So we have, at this stage, no choice other than to start to desalinate. Israel is already a large producer of desalination, but we need to make sure that all of the power is renewable, that powers the desalination facilities. That's why we love the water energy deal, that's renewables from Jordan that will increasingly power the desalination, not only Israeli, but also Palestinian in Gaza, on the Mediterranean as well. We are looking, and we believe that, and this is our call on the governments, that significant funding needs to be made available by government to help find solutions for the brine, because that salt that's removed at the moment is just dumped back into the Mediterranean. And as all of the Eastern Mediterranean countries are running out of water, all of them are planning to build large desalination facilities, which will likely turn the Eastern Mediterranean into a Dead Sea. So there is need, and we're actually, we're in touch. We reach out to the private sector, to startups. They also reach out to us, and we're in contact with companies that are coming up with ideas. Some of them are quite well advanced of how to turn the brine, instead of the current waste, to a resource that can be, they'll have a market. And we think that the government needs to support the research and also the private sector in their initial efforts here. But it needs to be not only environmentally sound, it needs to be also economically sound, so that the brine becomes something that is demanded because it's recognized as having great value.
Yeah, no, that's great. What Gidon, as we head into these next 2 weeks, what do you feel your greatest challenges are to accomplishing your advocacy goals? What do you see as the challenges or the obstacles to getting to where you want to be?
So I think that we have several challenges. The fact that there is a change in government taking place in Israel at this very time presents a challenge. The Israeli Prime Minister was supposed to attend. We heard that he's no longer going to attend because of the results of the election in Israel. There's been a real rise of violence between Israelis and Palestinians in the coming up to this election that's received clearly a lot of attention. So our challenge is to utilize the event itself to bring the climate issues back onto the highest level of public debate and media attention, in particularly both in Israel and in Palestine. I think that we're also going to encounter the general challenges that all the organizations will face at this COP, given the continued actions of Russia in the Ukraine, and the concern for the economy and perhaps global recession. We mustn't allow these issues, as important as they are, to divert attention and we're here, as part of the Waterkeeper community. I think acting as one community to make the best effort that we can to make sure that the climate crisis continues to receive the attention that it needs, and that our children and grandchildren will never forgive us if we don't achieve in making sure that climate and water issues get the attention they deserve today.
Yeah, the challenges you're facing on the political side make your work all the more important. You have to bear the torch and illuminate the path forward. And I have every faith that you're the person to do that with your team and with the other waterkeepers. So thank you so much, Gidon, for spending some time with us in your preparation and as we head into these 2 weeks. And we will do everything we can to promote your issues and your vision and your events this coming week. We'll try to push them out to the people who are following us on the platforms and on social media. So once again, thank you so much, Gidon. It's been a delight again to convene with you, and we wish you all the best during this conference. The world is counting on people like you.
Thank you very much. The world is counting on all of us waterkeepers. We have a central role to play. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, Gidon.
Thank you very much.
In closing tonight, I want to thank our sponsors, the Metzger family, True Elements, and our press sponsor, Florida Weekly, including its excellent executive editor, Jeff Call. Of course, I want to thank our team members, John, Michael, Valhali, Esteban, Tonga, and Rock. This week, as the proceedings unfold, I want to make sure we don't lose sight of the environmental justice and social justice component of our fight to combat climate change. Those of us with a megaphone who have a platform to advocate for change need to be constantly vigilant that social justice and environmental justice remain an integral part of our discussions and our actions. This means many things. It means listening to the voices of underdeveloped nations, the voices of indigenous peoples, and voices coming from our youth. It means paying close attention to the contentious issue of loss and damage, whereby richer nations would be impelled to underwrite climate solutions for developing nations suffering harm. We cannot, in the rush for renewable solutions, ignore our responsibility to those less advantaged than we. And we must let our indigenous allies, our youth, members of civil society, and those from underdeveloped nations constantly inform our progress and methods. At last year's COP in Glasgow, on the first Friday of the conference, we had 20,000 people, 20,000 students and activists in the streets. The next day, there were 100,000 in the streets. I was with them, and I interviewed many. The energy was palpable. That tumultuous attendance by those outside the convention halls had an effect. It got press. It put pressure on the delegates. It allowed those diverse voices to be heard. I'm concerned that this year at Sharm El Sheikh, where security is locked tight and where civil society and protest are not, shall we say, encouraged, that we won't have that all-important counterpoint to the official proceedings. I hope I'm proven wrong this week. So thank you for tuning in. Tomorrow we have a great interview with Abenaki tribe member and Grand River Keeper, my friend Earl Hatley, and important updates on the first official day of the conference. So thank you and good night.